Hello and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, Equestria War, the Kingdom of Wingbardy. And today, we're here to learn the truth. The real truth of the situations we've been in. What truly happened to our father. We must find out. We must know. The dream. Garibald Talonuel stepped out of the light of the doorway and onto the smooth cobbles of the courtyard. The grand walls of the Imperial Palace stood high all around. The golden light glowed in the many windows like the sun rising on a hall of mirrors. You could still hear the laughs from the decades of Griffinheim elite. But the party was anything but juvenile. There was a pressure in the air, like a string under tension on the verge of snapping. Surely everyone but the 12-year-old Emperor could feel it. King Umberto of Wingbardy had kept a civil face throughout the whole ordeal, and when Emperor Grover had drifted asleep on his throne, he had taken his leave. "Meet me outside in 15 minutes, the king said to Garibald. Now Garibald peered out into the dim light in the courtyard. It wasn't long until a pair of griffins came into sight. Even in the darkness, he could make out his father's shape. He headed towards them. The pair of griffins argued in a hushed voices. Suddenly there was a flash of a knife, and a half-scream choked out of existence as it left his father's throat. Garibald held his father in his arms, not caring for the blood that soiled his robes. There was so much of it. He screamed for help, but his father took his claw. The king tried to say something, but all that came out was the one last choke before he went limp. The nobles came one by one and gathered around them like a wake of vultures, even the young emperor still holding his doll and rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The Duke of Strawberry made sure he had a front-row seat. Garibald awoke, not with a start, but with a pained tiredness. The early light of dawn lazily flowed through his windows. He glanced at the photograph by his bed of his wife and young son before slowly rising to his feet. He stepped out onto his villa's balcony and stared out across the olive trees and vineyards. His father's killer was still out there, somewhere. All these years later, he was no closer to the truth, but it was never too late to start looking. Life is too short. Well, we should probably start with, sure, let's review the suspects. The suspects. Over the countless years that the king has been forced to wait for justice to be brought, he has not always stood idly by until the perfect opportunity. Through his own old investigations and that of the SIM that have narrowed the suspects down to 4 likely candidates. The first is Archon Eros, a close friend of Grover and zealot of the Empire. He is known for having a hatred of Wingbardy ever since we originally succeeded from the Empire. He was in attendance at the birthday party, and sources say he mysteriously disappeared right before the murder. He also does not drink alcohol, as it is unbefitting of his position. The second is Marie Discreet, a former member of the Aquilian royal family who died during the First Aquilian Revolution. She was a second cousin, thrice removed, to Morisset on the maternal side, and carried an immense hatred of both the Empire and Wingbardy. In fact, she was seen at Grover's party calling King Berto a disgraced nobility of all of Griffonia, shortly before his murder. Third is a sky-falling merchant named Margie Redclaw, one of the richer griffins in the Empire at the time. She had attempted to get a lucrative trade deal from Gilberto and Wingbardy at the party, but was rebuffed for her shady business practices and dishonest dealing. Her response was less than pleasant, and King Garibald had never seen her again after that incident. The last suspect is a field marshal of the Griffonia Empire, Elrich Ebenwing, son of a baron. He is very loyal to the Empire and is charismatic and resourceful. Back then, he was well known among the nobility for his drinking and partying, and was one of the spotlights at Grover's birthday party. However, he mysteriously disappeared from the location following Gumberto's death. I mean, all of those sound at least somewhat suspicious, but I suppose we'll actually, we could just start doing everything. I mean, we don't want to make the accusation yet, but we can do everything else. Sure, let's do intervention in Arabia. That sounds fun. But we have made files on suspects that we believe could have carried out the murder, and to kind of view them at any time to compare with gathered evidence. Search the crime scene. Despite the crime taking place decades ago, no effort was ever made to thoroughly investigate the place of murder. Perhaps some agents we could send find evidence left behind that we missed all those years ago. We could speak with the nobles. King Gilberto and his son were not the only two nobles from Wingbardy in attendance in the birthday party. Many other Wingbardian nobles were also present, some of whom are still alive to this day. Sure, they will have some memories of the importance from that terrible night. We could do some diggings. It was the Empire who denied us the ability to find the culprit, halting any attempt to look into who could have committed the act. Well, if they don't want to let us find our information, we will just have to take it using more subversive measures. We can also just recall memories. Garibald has gone through much recently, from the Falkor War to the recent crisis involving Michelini, to the Second Falkor War. that's unmentioned here. His memories of the loss of his father are fading, but he is sure that with time and focus, he can still remember something of value. Alright, let's get stuff going. Let's do that. Let's do that. Alright, the heir apparent. King Garibald Talonuel stepped out of the car and looked up at the trashed villa. He frowned at the broken wine bottles and the pink flamingo statue lying on the steps that led to the half-open door. The king flew up the steps and landed softly by the door. One of his guards opened it. Inside it was dark and thick with cigar smoke, the stench of alcohol and other smells he didn't dare think of. A passed-out griffin lay on the couch by the door. She was wearing a wine-stained bed sheet and the style of a Carthian toga. Laughter echoed down the hall, followed by the sounds of claws and paws scampering over the marble floor. Prince Gilberto skidded to a halt as he entered the hallway and saw his father. He was naked and his feathers damp and stained with food and wine. Father? Son, we need to talk. A second laughing griffin ran in. This one wearing a Blackwing uniform. The guards reached for their guns, but the king gestured for them to stop. The Blackwing almost fell over himself as he saw the king and armed guard. Your Majesty, leave us. The griffin's face was bright red as he bowed and quickly scampered away. This is my house, father. You can't just come in here and... I gave you this villa. It was built by my grandfather. Garibald said coldly as he gazed up at his son, and you disgrace it with yet another one of your parties. He felt a sense of boldness towards his son overcome him. You are not fit for the crown. You will not be a disgrace to the throne or our family's legacy. How could you properly govern when you spend your time acting in such an ungodly manner? You know nothing of what it means to be king. Now get in the car. Gilberto was startled by a moment, shook his head. No. It wasn't a choice. Guards, give him a claw. The heir apparent. Gilberto didn't put up much of a fight as he was bundled into a waiting car. The king sighed and looked around the hallway once more. There was a painting on his grandfather, King Garibald Talonuel II, hanging crookedly on the wall. He took a moment to straighten the painting and wipe a layer of dust off the frame with his handkerchief before returning to his own car. Gilberto will have to learn to be a king, one way or another. If he cannot, then the monarchy and the nation is doomed. Most certainly, because we've put ourselves into, like, full-on monarchy. Like, we have to. Dragged to supper. You didn't have to force him here. You didn't have to force him here, Queen Jelena said. Your guards forcing him into cars not going to make anything better. What else was I supposed to do? You won't listen to me, King Garibald replied. Jelena sighed and placed her talons on his shoulders. She was bigger than most griffins and towered over him like he was still just a fledgling. Be patient with him. He has always been stubborn, just like you. The door opened and Gilberto strode in. Good morning, mother, he said with a polite nod. Then as an afterthought, he turned to Garibald. Father? Queen Jelena frowned, but said nothing. Take your seat at the table. King Garibald followed suit. The royal chefs came out with dinner. A meal fit only for the highest nobility. What followed was a very quiet dinner. What am I gonna do with him? I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. They'll need to, because, I mean, he is the future, no matter what we want to think about that. Prince Gumberto is a lazy, hedonistic disgrace to the royal family, and all of Wingbardy knows it. If the monarchy and the kingdom is to survive when King Garibald Talonuel III is gone, he will need to be taught how to become a good and proper ruler. His father has taken it upon himself to accomplish this, but he will need to be active and teach him carefully, lest Gumberto double down on his drunken parties. Hopefully we'll be able to fix this situation. But while that's happening, we're gonna do some intervention in Arabia. Western Zebrica has long been dominated by the mighty Saddle Arabia. However, the nation has erupted into a civil war. With a timely and generous intervention, we could ensure the victors are grateful and look to our regime favorably. Yes, that is true. Though now there's really only two choices left in this. And we don't really want to work with either, but it is possible. We'll have to see if anything is available. If not, we'll move on. Simple as that. The many addictions of Gumberto. Prince Gumberto was found on many subsidies, perhaps too fond. He treasured his cigars from Porto Caballo, occasionally indulged in opium, experimented with inhaling powdered magical crystals, and above all worshipped wine. While the king had an impressive collection of stamps, Gumberto was building on his own hoard of expensive wines from all across Griffonia and beyond. Yet the size of the hoard hardly grew as he consumed wine as quickly as he acquired it. The king knew something had to be done about Gumberto's addictions before they would get completely out of control. He had two options in mind. The first was to simply confiscate all addictive substances he owned and push him to go cold turkey, as the saying went. The second was to seek professional help from the finest Wingbardian doctors who could help with his rehabilitation. The former was more risky, as withdrawal systems would be likely, but the latter was more expensive and wouldn't really teach any lessons to Gumberto. He felt like the prince had to learn the hard way, otherwise he just returned to his hedonistic consumption again. One thing was for certain, Gumberto wouldn't like this either way. No more for him. No more drugs for him. None. None at all. The hunt. Two griffins walked... First, let me go ahead and get that. Two griffins walked through the forest north of Carthen, armed with rifles, out hunting for game. One moved through the trees with the pace of a seasoned veteran, making no noise as he walked. The other clumsily followed close behind, snapping almost every stick in his way. "Father, when are we going to find something? It's been hours," Gumberto complained. "We should just head back to Carthen." "Patience, my son. The opportunity will come to us if we wait for it." Garibald put a single claw from his talon, silencing his son before he responded. "Do you hear that?" Gumberto listened closely before looking to his right. There, a single white rabbit was sitting, seemingly having not noticed them yet. "Now watch," the king said quietly, raising his rifle. "This is how you hunt. You aim for the head to ensure a clean kill." "Father, wait!" The prince raised his rifle as well, alongside Garibald. "Let me try first. I can do this." "Gumberto, you have never fired a rifle in your life." "Please, father." King Gambert looked into his son's eyes, as seemed pleading for a chance to take the shot. "No, son, you are not ready. Let me shoot." "I'll show you how it's done. I don't want you to get yourself killed." And now we're gonna have a state dinner with Gumberto. The grandiose party. Oh, okay, so here's all the different things. The royal ball was in full swing by the time King Garibald was able to escape his responsibilities as ruler of Wingbardy. After all, he was the one hosting this party, and as such, there was certain things he had to do before he could have free time for himself. Matters like greeting the guests, speaking with the nobility of their personal wealth, and other such trivialities. They were all distractions from his real reason for hosting the royal ball tonight. That being speaking with the very nobles who were attending with him at Grover's 12th birthday party. in particular with one Duke Giovanni of Blood Talon, the griffin he remembered the most from that night. Duke Giovanni, Garibald began respectfully as he approached the noble, it is a pleasure to meet you once again. As to you, my king, the Duke responded, bowing before him, so to what do I owe you the pleasure? Garibald stiffened a little. I must ask for your assistance in gathering evidence for the murder of my father, King Gilberto. I have recently opened up an investigation into it. Ah, yes, he responded, nodding along. That was indeed a terrible night. My memory has been failing me recently, but I will never forget the time we lost our king. What do you remember from that night, Duke Giovanni? The old griffin scratched his chin with a claw. Well, that depends. What do you wish to know? Well, I know what I need to do, but I'm going to ask what I don't need first. I know a friend. The griffins, well, not much. There were many of them there, from all over Griffonia. Everything has become a blur to me, and I remember very little of the creatures there. Garibald resisted the urge to frown. That is quite unfortunate. My apologies. The two were silent for a moment before the Duke suddenly snapped his claws. But I do know some griff who could tell you. I have a former friend in the Empire, Baron Helhelm. He may hate Wingbardy now, but he still owes me a favor. If you say that I'm calling in that favor, he will tell you everything you wish to know. Are you sure we can trust him? Of course not. He's an imperial noble, but he is also also honorable, and I'm sure he will uphold his end of the bargain. The king paused for a second, thinking it was over before speaking once more. I thank you, Duke Giovanni. You have done a great service to Wingbardy today. It is always a pleasure to serve, my king. Hopefully this imperial will have something we can use. Okay, so we're also gonna not look at the right thing here, just to see, let's just, the weapon records. We can catch the murderer by his knife. Searching the scene. Gavino Gurinto surveyed the courtyard in Griffinheim, just outside the royal palace, trying to act as inconspicuous as possible. After all, he was just a Wingbardian tourist, taking in the sights of the city, and most definitely not a secret agent for Servizio Inforci Militare, or SIM. In reality, he was simply waiting for his partners to report back, as they were all around the courtyard and the surrounding area, trying to find any clues possibly left behind from the murder all those years ago. Personally, Gavino had his doubts about this whole operation, but the government had asked for it, so had obeyed. A slight breeze began to pick up across the cobblestone space as three griffins, all wearing tourist outfits, made their way towards Gavino. Excellent timing, he said to them, as the bell far away began to chime, 3 in the afternoon. So what did you find? Nothing, sir, the first replied. It seems that all the possible evidence was either already gathered by the Imperialists or washed away by the decades since the murder. Obviously, another grumbled. Gavino shot him a vicious glare. What? He asked defensively. You said yourself that this was probably a waste of time. The agent held back the urge aside. Yes, that does not mean I cannot hope otherwise. Come on, let's get moving before the Imperials get suspicious. The three nodded and followed Gavina out of the courtyard, bringing out tourist pamphlets and starting to speak broken Herzlandish. The search had been a dead end, just as the SIM expected it to be. What a disappointing outcome. Garibald sat in the chair within his royal bedroom, in a deep contemplation. Over the past few weeks or so, he had taken time out of his day to relax, take a deep breath, and try to remember what had happened that night his father died. There must have been some detail he'd missed, and some important clue he had brushed off or simply forgotten at that time, and if such thing existed, he was determined to find it. The scene Garibald could remember clearly, the cobblestone beneath his talons, the blood of his father soaking his royal clothing, the sound of the choking on his own blood. It was painful to recall how the Imperials flocked to the scene, how they all stared on at him, holding his father's corpse. The Emperor still too tired to even understand what was going on. The faint smell of alcohol within the air. Wait, that smell. It was the distinct smell of a wine. Garibald could not recall a single instance during the party that his father drank, instead of preferring to say sober and watch the other nobles make a fool of themselves. But yet, the scent of wine on King Gilberto's clothes was present. Mixing with the smell of his blood, Garibald could almost name that exact type of wine. He had tasted it before. It was, and then it was gone, as quickly as it had come. The memory had faded once more. Garibald resisted the urge to pound the table in anger, instead focusing once more on the memory of his memory. What was that wine he had remembered? Well, I know the correct one, but I'm gonna choose a wrong one. And we're gonna be doing this quickly because I know these are wrong, so I'm gonna be loading the save anyways, so I don't care about any of you at all. I'm not gonna research, I'm not gonna choose things. I don't care. I'm gonna skip read. I'm not gonna read this event. Like, I don't care. I'm literally, like, none of this is correct. So, like, yeah. Like, I'm gonna be loading the save anyways, so why would I do that? Okay, good, I can support them. I don't care. I don't care about either of those events because I'm not gonna read them for now, because I don't want to spoil myself on things that are happening in the main stuff. I would rather just sit here and see what's happening in this non-canon area, where I just look at what's going on with these wrong answers, because I know all these are wrong. I've Googled the right answers for this, because honestly, I don't know how you're supposed to just know which ones to pick. It's kind of random. You kind of just gotta guess and check, I suppose, or Google it. I mean, you can't really just know. It's not really a murder mystery where you can find, like, you can be like, yes, this makes more sense, because unless I'm missing something heavily, which I could be. I do commonly miss stuff heavily. It happens, most certainly, but I don't think that's the case here. Also, that does mean that anything happening here is not actually canon. Like, you know, in my canon, they haven't attacked them yet, and if they win, or if they win, that hasn't canonically happened. So, you know, all the stuff we're seeing at this point forward is non-canon, you know. Just ignore it, you know. None of it's real. No, I don't care. I don't care about that, because that is also not real. You know what? This isn't real either. None of that's real. Those are fake factories. Those aren't real factories. Real factories go on tanks. Yeah, that's how you do it. I don't know. I mean, I'm loading a save anyway, so I don't care, but... yeah, long-range battleships. That's what you do. An uneasy meeting. What do you want? The gruff, Hearstlandish voice called out to the Wingbardians without ever turning to them as the four landed swiftly to the ground. If you're from Skyfall, I don't have to pay my debt until next week. We aren't from Skyfall, no, Gavino Gurrinto responded, taking off his mask. The Imperial turned, snarling. Wingbardians, come to assassinate me or steal my fortune, have you? He pulled out a dagger from his robes. Well, I won't be going down without a fight. The other 3 visitors drew their weapons as well, but Gavino put out his claw to stop them. No, we've come to ask for a favor. Duke Giovanni of Blood Talon sent us. The Duke, the Griffin looked conflicted. His face contorted until he finally seemed to make an agreement with himself. Fine, he spat out. I will ask again, what do you want? What do you remember about the night our King Gumberto died? Ah, that night. The Imperial made his way over to the chair, sitting down in it as he remained staring intently at the Wingbardians. If you believe that I know who killed your king, I don't. And if I did at the time, the Empire had blocked even us from trying to look further into it out of curiosity. What I do remember was the food, though. He closed his eyes, apparently reliving the moment. All the wines and exotic foods brought from the entirety of the world. It was quite curious, though, seeing the Skyfalling turn down all the wine that the Vivinians brought. Good stuff. Oh, and the Queens don't have any Francian wine either. Something about refusing due to poor quality. The 4 agents looked at each other. This information may come in handy, Gavino commented. Thank you for your time, Baron Helheim. Yes, now get out. Stop hounding me and tell Giovanni that I've settled my debt. There has to be something we can use this evidence for. Yeah? A tale of knives. It was known by most who had ever attended an event in Griffinheim, and the Imperials kept records of the weapons confiscated and later returned. After all, allowing weapons at a social gathering was an easy path to courtly assassinations, and that would not reflect well on the Empire as a whole. That was why a majority of attendees had to undergo a search and give up any sort of weapon for safekeeping until it was time to leave, when they could get it back. Finding the exact file of Grover's 12th birthday was a bit difficult. The labeling had worn off over the decades, and the organization of the folders themselves were abysmal. Even when they eventually found it, SIM members had to then search through every document to find their suspects, and then find the weapons taken from them. But eventually it was done, and a full report of the information was laid out on Gavino Gaberton's desk. Both Endrix Ebenwing and Margie Redclaw carried knives with them to the party. Margie Discreet had not, choosing instead to take an old Vivian revolver. Arkin Eros was unfortunately not in the records. His griffin of his standing was exempt from the rule and searches. While it may not have been everything that had been hoped for, at least one of the suspects can be comfortably taken off the list. A sample of strawberry wine. The sample is ready. Fresh strawberry wine had been imported straight from the Hersland, and both a bottle and glass of it was now arranged in front of King Garibald III within his diving room. Carefully he uncorked the bottle and slowly poured himself a glass of the wine. This had to be it. If he had gotten the correct wine, he could get one step closer to finding even a father. But if he was wrong, well, best not dwell on that for now. The king could sniff the alcohol before having a small sip from the glass. It was an excellent wine, he had to admit that much. The griffins from Strawberry knew their craft well, but as he mentally matched the wine he was having to the one he smelled back then, they just didn't match. He had been wrong, and within an instant the memory faded completely once more, leaving his mind blank. The chance to gain any sort of lead from this had come and gone, and he had missed it. Curses. Now, let's go back and see some other options that we had that are also wrong. Let's read all the wrong options. We'll get to the right options next time. Do 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 do. All right. Loading. Save game. Hippogriff Kind is destined to claim hegemony over North Zebrica. We've avoided our destiny for far too long. Crack lightning. Yeah, whatever you say. What a screwball, that Crack Lightning. No one likes him. No one cares about him. Now this is a good pony in the show. What is the name of that pony? I don't remember. The war's over, but Equestria has changed. Harmony has changed, and I fear there's no going back. Well, why would you want to go back, baby? Get rid of that harmony. Make it better. Make it faster. Make it stronger. Get rid of that harmony. No one wants it. No one needs it. No one cares about its lies. No one wants to gain it back. Moving on. Moving fast. Do 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 do. Yeah, I did. Darn it. I thought I might have loaded the wrong save there. Darn it. Yep. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm loading the right save, and I was not. Woo! Sometimes you load the wrong save. Sometimes you load the right save. Sometimes you forget. Sometimes you know. Sometimes you go. Burn this experiment to the ground and leave nothing standing. Daybreak, arriving in Stalingrad. Yay! Yay! That's what we want. Yay! Woo! Yay! We were spared his wrath, but imagine how many nations were broken under the Storm King. How many old kingdoms and venerable states are now left to pick up the broken remains of their homes. Like pretty much all, like most of Zebrica, really. This is our last radio broadcast. The chainlink units have entered Baltimore. Fraternal greetings to all our friends still fighting. Wherever they are, Equestria is not yet lost. Long live Equestria. Whatever, don't care. Last broadcast of Baltimore Radio. Boo! Boo! You suck! Baltimore, you suck! No one likes you. Why don't we try talking to them instead of fighting? Fluttershy. Boo, you suck! Fluttershy, you suck! Fight instead of talking is better. Fight! 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 Fight them all in day and night. Fight! 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 Fight them all in day and night. Okay. Frankistrian wine. What a disappointing outcome. Imperial files. And this one just doesn't matter because they got right op you already know the right option, so I'm just gonna click the same one. Boop, boop, boop. Search the Imperial Gumberto history file. Our agents have successfully stolen a copy of the official Imperial file on King Gumberto, which should contain all the information, opinions, and plans that they had at his time of death. If they truly learned anything about it that we did not know about, it would be here. And then procure the wine. With the king remembering a certain brand of wine, it is now essential that we obtain a sample of the wine to see if it can jog his memory. And don't care. Any further and give us more evidence. The correct wine should give us some sort of clue, but the wrong wine may end up having us lose the memory entirely. Man, what a volatile memory you have. Like, oh my god, wait, no. I knew the memory's gone now. I drank the wrong wine. No. Like, what? Really? That's how it works? That's how your memory works? Okay, whatever. Sure, dude. Weird memory, but sure, dude. Whatevs. Alright. Well, I'm just waiting on these to get, and then we're gonna read it. And then we're gonna end the episode. And then we'll see the right path, which I think you've already guessed what the right decisions are. At least from what I've seen, they've worked in the past for me, so I'm gonna do them. And yeah, though I've never actually read any of these events before, I've just done them. I've just clicked on the options. So this has been my first time reading them. I've just clicked on them before. I don't care. Just start building an armored car randomly, okay? Just do that. I don't know why, just build an armored car. I want one. Just one. Just one for me. Wait, I've got my one. Stop building them. I don't want any more. I just want one for me, okay? One for me. Give me one. I don't need the uneasy meaning again. The Gumberto files. Various SIM teams had been hard at work the last week or so, pouring through the Imperial files on Gumberto for any kind of evidence they could find. They examined every single word, double-checking every detail for a single thing that the Wingbardians didn't know that could make a breakthrough in the case. Anything really that the Imperials could have kept hidden from them decades ago. But as the final report reached Garintino's desk, the simple fact on the paper was that this was a dead end. Nothing in the report stating anything they didn't already know, such as how the murder weapon was a knife, and that he died in King Garibald's talons. Even the basic facts told them nothing, as the Imperials had apparently been careful in keeping their own opinions about the former king out of the official document. At the end of the day, nothing was gained. By this, the Imperials were just as in the dark as we were. the sample of Frangistrian wine. The sample was ready. First Frangistrian wine had been imported straight from across the border, and both a bottle and glass of it was now arranged in front of King Garibald Toulouse III within his dining room. Carefully he uncooked the bottle, and slowly poured himself a glass of the wine. This was it. If he had gotten the correct wine, he could get one step closer to finally avenging his father, but if he was wrong, well, best not dwell on that now. The king could sniff the alcohol before having a small sip from the glass. It was an excellent wine, just as he was expected. The griffins of Frangistrian knew how to make a well-crafted drink, but as he mentally matched the wine he was having to the one he smelled back then, they just didn't match. He had been wrong, and without an instant, the memory faded completely once more, leaving his mind blank. Just to gain any sort of lead from this had come and gone, and he had missed it. Curses. You got even less evidence this time. Let's go! But that's a good time to go ahead and end this episode. In the next one, we're going to find out the truth. But I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell button. And as always,